In a remote village at the foot of a majestic mountain range, there lived a young man named Kavi. Kavi was a quiet soul, different from the other villagers who found joy in communal activities and celebrations. He preferred the solitude of the forests, where he could listen to the whispering winds and the rustling leaves. But as time passed, Kavi's solitude began to turn into loneliness, and he felt a growing emptiness in his heart. Kavi tried to fill this void by immersing himself in work and hobbies, but nothing seemed to ease his sense of isolation. He often watched the villagers from afar, observing their laughter and camaraderie with a longing that he couldn't quite understand. Though he yearned for connection, Kavi felt awkward and unsure around others, as if he didn't belong. One day, as he wandered aimlessly through the forest, Kavi came across an elderly monk meditating under a large ancient tree. The monk's presence radiated a serene and peaceful energy, and Kavi felt inexplicably drawn to him. Gathering his courage, he approached the monk and bowed respectfully. "Venerable sir," Kavi said hesitantly, "I feel so alone in this world. I see others around me living happily, but I can't seem to find that happiness myself. My heart is heavy with loneliness. Can you help me?" The monk opened his eyes and gazed at Kavi with deep compassion. He could see the pain in the young man's eyes and understood the weight of the loneliness he carried. "Kavi," the monk began gently, "loneliness is a common experience, one that many people carry in their hearts. But often, loneliness arises not from being physically alone, but from feeling disconnected, from ourselves, from others, and from the world around us." Kavi listened intently, his heart yearning for the wisdom the monk seemed to hold. "Come," the monk said, rising to his feet. "Let us take a walk together." The two walked in silence through the forest, the sounds of nature enveloping them. The monk led Kavi up a path that wound its way toward the mountains. As they climbed higher, the village below became smaller and smaller, until it was no more than a distant speck. Eventually, they reached a secluded spot with a breathtaking view of the mountains and valleys. The monk sat down on a flat rock, motioning for Kavi to join him. "Look at the mountains," the monk said, his voice soft and soothing. "They have stood here for millions of years, silent and alone. Yet they are not lonely. They are connected to everything. The sky, the earth, the rivers that flow from their peaks. They are part of the great web of life, just as you are." Kavi gazed at the mountains, trying to understand the monk's words. "But I don't feel connected," he admitted. "I feel separate, like I'm on the outside looking in." The monk nodded, as if expecting this response. "That feeling of separateness, Kavi, comes from the mind. The mind creates illusions of division, making us believe that we are isolated individuals, cut off from everything else. But in reality, we are all interconnected, like the threads of a great tapestry." He paused for a moment, letting his words sink in before continuing. "Loneliness," the monk explained, "is often a result of our attachment to the idea of the self, the I and me that we think of as separate from others. When we focus too much on our own perceived shortcomings or differences, we build walls that keep us from truly connecting with those around us." "But how do I break down those walls?" Kavi asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "The first step," the monk replied, "is to cultivate compassion, both for yourself and for others. When you practice compassion, you begin to see beyond the illusion of separation. You realize that everyone, in their own way, experiences loneliness, pain, and suffering. By reaching out to others with kindness, you can begin to dissolve the barriers that isolate you." Kavi pondered the monk's words, feeling a flicker of hope in his heart. "But how can I start?" he asked. "Let me tell you a story," the monk said, with a gentle smile. The story of the Golden Bowl. Once, in a distant kingdom, there lived a wise and compassionate king. He was loved by his people for his fairness and generosity. One day, the king decided to hold a grand feast in his palace, inviting everyone in the kingdom to attend. He wanted to share his wealth and joy with all his subjects, rich and poor alike. As the day of the feast approached, the king noticed an old man sitting alone by the roadside, looking forlorn and weary. The king approached him and asked, "Why do you sit here alone, my friend? You are welcome to join the feast at the palace." The old man looked up at the king with sad eyes. "I have nothing to offer, Your Majesty," he replied. "I am poor and have no gifts to bring. I do not belong at a royal feast." The king smiled kindly and said, "You are mistaken, my friend. The feast is not about what you can bring, but about what you can share with others." The king then gave the old man a simple golden bowl and said, "Take this bowl with you to the feast. Fill it with whatever you wish and share it with those around you. You will find that by giving to others, you will receive more than you ever imagined." The old man hesitated at first, but he took the bowl and went to the feast. As he entered the palace, he was greeted warmly by the other guests. He filled his bowl with food and began to share it with those around him. To his amazement, no matter how much he gave, the bowl never emptied. Instead, it seemed to fill itself with even more delicious food. The old man soon realized that the more he gave, the more he received, not just in food, but in smiles, laughter, and companionship. The loneliness he had felt for so long melted away, replaced by a deep sense of connection with those around him. From that day on, the old man was never lonely again. He had learned that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we give to others. As the monk finished the story, Kavi felt a warmth spreading through his chest. He understood now that his loneliness was not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be transformed. "Master," Kavi said, "I want to learn how to cultivate compassion, how to connect with others." The monk smiled, pleased with Kavi's newfound determination. "Begin with small acts of kindness," he advised. "Reach out to those around you with an open heart, without expecting anything in return. Listen to their stories, share in their joys and sorrows, and you will find that the loneliness you feel will gradually dissolve." Kavi nodded, feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. "And remember," the monk added, "compassion is not just about connecting with others, it is also about being kind to yourself. Treat yourself with the same gentleness and understanding that you would offer to a friend. When you do this, you will find that you are never truly alone." Kavi thanked the monk for his wisdom and guidance. As they walked back to the village, Kavi felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He knew that the journey to overcoming loneliness would take time and effort, but he also knew that he was no longer walking that path alone. Over the following months, Kavi began to practice the monk's teachings. He reached out to his neighbors, offering help where it was needed and listening to their stories. He found that as he opened his heart to others, they, in turn, opened their hearts to him. The invisible walls that had once separated him from the world began to crumble, and in their place, Kavi discovered a deep and abiding sense of connection. Kavi also practiced self-compassion, learning to be gentle with himself during moments of doubt or sadness. He realized that loneliness was not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to grow and to connect more deeply with the world around him. In time, Kavi's loneliness transformed into a profound sense of belonging. He no longer felt like an outsider in his own life, but like a vital thread in the tapestry of existence. And though he still enjoyed moments of solitude, he knew that he was never truly alone. Moral of the story: loneliness is not simply the absence of others, but often a feeling of disconnection from the world and from ourselves. By cultivating compassion, both for ourselves and for others, we can break down the walls that isolate us and discover the deep interconnectedness of all beings. True connection comes from reaching out with an open heart and practicing kindness, both towards others and towards ourselves. In doing so, we can transform loneliness into a profound sense of belonging and peace. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know how you deal with loneliness. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more inspiring stories like this. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful stories to you. So like, share, comment, and subscribe now.